My Vampire Brother's Keeper, Chapter 13. The Werewolf in Love with a Vampire. That night I was visited by the talking wolf and I allowed him to enter my room. The creature rested his head on Valerio's side of the bed. He sniffed it about before saying, "The bedsheets still smell of him." "They haven't been cleaned yet," I said. "His scent was already erased from my house. Father went way out of his way to destroy everything he has touched. Even his bed was burned," said the wolf sadly. "Seems a bit excessive," I commented, and I added, narrowing my eyes, "Are you Alonso?" "Maybe I am, maybe I'm not," said Alonso, being cryptic. "Are you a vampire?" I asked. "I don't know. My dad claims we are werewolves, although I have never seen him turn into a dog," said Alonso, "and he tells me that you get better at repressing the beast with age, and given enough time I will regain my humanity." "I don't know. Valerio tried to live as a human, but in the end he wasn't able to. His vampirism eventually rose to the surface, and he was rejected by his so-called friends." "What is going to become of you if you're not able to regain your humanity?" I asked. "I will be sent to live with my uncle and his pack, and they live with the Native Americans in the Appalachian Mountains, and the Indians are more tolerant of wolfmen such as I," said Alonso, sighing wearily. "If I lose my humanity, can I pretend to be your pet dog? I don't want to hunt rabbits in the wilderness for the rest of my life." "Are you good at herding cattle?" I joked. "I can learn if that is what it takes to keep me home," said Alonso. "But this is my home," I corrected. "No, it isn't. I marked all four corners of your house, and I also marked that tree over there. That makes your home part of my territory," said Alonso, wagging his tail happily. I laughed in spite of myself, and we fell asleep while sharing stories about Valerio. And the following morning I awoke to find myself in bed with a stranger, and I rubbed my eyes before carefully examining the person's face, and I breathed a sigh of relief when I recognized Alonso. I pulled the bedsheet over Alonso's bare shoulder, and I didn't need to lift the bedsheets to know that he wasn't wearing anything. I laid a change of clothing for him by the bedstand, and I went to the breakfast table. And once I got over my lethargy, I went to the kitchen to make my own food. I don't know how to cook, but I can at least boil an egg. I boiled 2 eggs in order to eat it with dry bacon, toast, and butter. And my mother regarded me with a sad expression while Santiago looked visibly conflicted, and he would open his mouth every so often before changing his mind. And every so often he would look at my mother, and after much delay, his mother finally had the courage to tell me about Baba. My earliest memories are not of my mother, they were of Baba. And Baba was the name of my blood nursemaid, and she was different from all of the other servants. For one thing, she was white. At the tender age of 2, I didn't find it odd that I had a white nursemaid, and when she would take me to church, all of the other children my age had black nursemaids, and my mother at the time was busy with her social obligations, and she was still transitioning from wife to breadwinner, and managing both the ranch and the house completely occupied her time. And my days with Baba were simple, predictable, and the only break in our happy routine occurred when we had to go to church. And it wasn't often that we would visit the cousins, and even when we did visit, they never played with me. At most, all I got was a pat on my hair, as if they were feeling magnanimous. No, and if they were feeling magnanimous, they would give me a new toy or some candy. And Baba would play with me while my mother conversed with her brothers and their wives, and every so often she would turn to look at me before smiling. This was all she did to acknowledge my existence. My mother had an artist friend, at least I think he was a friend, and maybe he was a distant cousin, I don't remember, and he would come to my house every so often to work on a family portrait, and Baba would patiently sit with me while the artist worked his magic. And when it was my mother's turn to sit, the two would converse for hours, and even a toddler like me could tell that they were good friends. One day, Mother's good friend attacked Baba, and to protect my nursemaid, I stabbed him 3 times in the back with his own palette knife. And during the attack, Baba kept telling me not to look, to close my eyes, and I did, just like she had ordered me to. And when I was finally able to open my eyes, I was back in my crib, and that was the last time I saw my maid. I don't understand why my mother punished her for something that wasn't her fault. And even if she hadn't distabbed the guy, Baba had every right to defend herself. And perhaps it was because the stabs had been down in his back, and bastard wounds allude to murder and not self-defense. At least now Mother's finally in the mood to tell me why she so readily believed that Baba was capable of committing murder. I blinked twice in order to return to the present, and at the moment I was in the tea room, sitting on the couch, on the rocking chair, there was my mother overthinking what she wanted to say. And every so often Santiago would look at her, and it almost seemed like he wanted to tell the story. And in the end, my mother was the one to break the silence. "We didn't fire Baba," said my mother. "Mom, I am 16, I reminded her. It was going to be a long day if she started the conversation with such an obvious lie. What your mother means to say is that we didn't throw Baba out into the world without securing for her well-being. And she was the daughter of one of your father's patients. And when her mother died, your dad promised that he would look after her daughter as if she was her own, as if she was his own." Said Santiago. Yes, and when my husband died, it was his last request that I look after the little minx," said my mother. "I guess that explains everything, and you didn't want to fulfill your promise, so you jumped at the first opportunity to be rid of that stranger for good," I said, putting words in my mother's mouth. "That isn't true. Just look at it from my perspective. I walk into the room and I find the wench covered in blood while holding a painter's knife. And I see you in a corner covering your eyes, and when I ask you what happened, you simply ask if you could open your eyes," said Santiago. "I must have repressed that memory," I said, rubbing my temple, "and it was giving me a headache just thinking about it. Why didn't Baba explain herself?" "Shame, fear, we don't know," mused my mother. Was Baba really her name?" I asked. "No, her name was Valeria," said my mother, stammering. And she added, "And since Valeria was such a mouthful, you used to call her Baba or Baba. Valeria, sure, or Baba or Baba." "Oh, no. Okay, now," I said, tapping my hands nervously while I digested this new information. And it was interesting to know that Valerio and Valeria had such similar names, and they both had blonde hair and green eyes, and they had so much in common. One could almost say that they were the same person. And sitting up, I asked, shocked, "So Valerio and Valeria are one of the same, and Valerio is my Baba, isn't he?" "Precisely," said Santiago. "But Valerio, he's so masculine," I commented, remembering his torso, and I sat back down before resting my head on my fist. "Did you ever see his?" asked Santiago, pointing at his pants. "No," I said, rubbing my shin, and it was then when I remembered the incident involving Valerio's bloody pants, so that flimsy excuse of sleeping with someone was to hide the fact that he was a woman. And I added, "Did you know that Baba was a vampire?" "Yes, your father told us as much, but he said we didn't need to have to worry. Valeria was weak in comparison to other vampires, and when we took her in, she looked like a skinny little thing. And we felt that there was no reason to be afraid of her," said my mother. "Who did you give Valeria to?" I asked. "The story is a little bit more complicated. You see, son, I searched high and low for a vampire clan that was willing to take her into their fold. And the day a representative of the clan came for her, Valeria ran off, and we never saw her again," concluded Santiago. "Why didn't you search for her?" I asked. "I did search for her, I really did, but the moment she changed forms, I completely lost track of her," explained Santiago, "and for a time we would put up bounties to see if anyone would see her, and never could have I imagined that Valeria was hiding out in a merchant ship that sailed all over the world while pretending to be a boy." I sighed wearily. It does seem like a good hiding place indeed. I rose from the couch in order to go soak in my bedroom, and I truly wish that my mother would have told me that Valerio was my nursemaid sooner. And maybe if I had shown him that it's her, that I still remember her, then maybe she would have stayed with me. I found Alonso already dressed, and he was making his way towards the window, and he had been away from home long enough. Even from a distance, he could probably hear his father howling for him, or so I wager. And he was certainly far more interesting as a werewolf than as a human painter. Then again, I never cared for painters. The days slowly rolled by, and the only difference to how things were before was that Alonso would stop by to pester me every so often. often, and on a warm spring night I made the effort to integrate him to my friend group, and I invited Alonso into my home without telling him that Laura and Ignacio were also visiting. And Alonso peeped his head into the bedroom in his wolf form. He wagged his tail happily to show his good humor, and he asked, "So what do you want to do today, Ambrosio? Read a book, go play a board game, or feed the mosquitoes?" Feeding the mosquito was what we call going for a walk, and due to his lycanthropy, Alonso always found amusing to patrol his territory. "How about if we practice tricks? And since you're a human and not a dog, it won't take much to train you," I joked. Alonso growled ominously before his hair stood on end, and he was obviously not amused. I kid, I said, forcing a laugh, and turning seriously, I asked, "How long can you maintain that form?" "I don't know, I never time myself. The wolf usually goes away when I lose consciousness or when I fall asleep," mused Alonso. "And with my father's the opposite. Oh no, please forget I said that, and father usually kills anyone that sees our true form." "Usually," I said nervously. "I don't know why he hasn't killed you yet, and maybe it is because of your discretion, and you haven't told anyone about me or Valerio," said Alonso. Alonso turned to look out the window, and he growled before hiding under the bed, and he was probably smelling Laura and Ignacio approaching, and sure enough, as if they manifested outside my window. "I want you to meet a new friend of mine," I said, pointing towards the bed. "Well, it is not a new friend per se, it is just that I got to know Alonso well, and he turned out to be an okay individual, and I want him to hang out with us from now on." "Okay, but why all the secrecy?" asked Laura before yawning. "Do you remember when I told you that Valerio's transformations and you didn't believe me?" I asked. "Obviously," said Ignacio, "seeing is believing, as the saying goes." "Blessed are those who didn't see but did believe," I said, quoting the Bible. "Is that it?" asked Laura. "This is stupid. I'm going back to bed now." Wait. Alonso is hiding under my bed, and he's in the form of a wolf. He's a werewolf. And when he's in his dog form, he is capable of human speech, I explained. "And just wait there with your lanterns, and I'm going to show you." And I lifted the bedsheets, and in the darkness, the wolf Alonso was barely visible. And when causing him didn't work, I tried my sandal, and Alonso bit the sandal before snapping his teeth. And the moment he sank his fangs into it, I was able to drag him out from beneath the bed. And Alonso froze on the spot when he saw the lanterns, and his eyes glowed green in the darkness. "Cool, you got a dog," said Ignacio, approaching Alonso. And Alonso made himself small while Ignacio petted his head. And Laura said, "If you're Alonso, then speak." "Bark," said Alonso. "Is this a joke?" asked Ignacio, pointing towards the dog. Alonso barked again. "Listen, Alonso, stop making me look like a fool and turn back into a human now," I ordered while shaking my fist in an infantile display of fury. Alonso whimpered before returning to his hiding spot. "Have fun with your new pet," said Ignacio, starting to depart with his sister. If you don't have your mother's permission to own this dog, you can just leave it in our farm in the morning, and he will fit right in with the other mutts in our kennel," offered Laura. "Thank God they're leaving," said Alonso, sighing with relief as soon as my friends left. "I had known Laura and Ignacio my life. You can trust them," I insisted. "If you could trust them, why didn't you have Valerio put on a show for them?" barked Alonso. "I forgot. I was too distracted with my own private show, and I had no idea he was going to go up and leave so soon," I said, rubbing my temple, and I sat on the bed before sighing wearily. "If you get me a little bit of peanut butter, I can do something for you to help you relax," said Alonso, resting his head on my lap. "I am not in the mood to eat a sandwich," I said before petting my friend's head. Alonso laughed heartily and said, "Ambrosio, you are so innocent that it is almost comical." "I am 16, I said. "That's cute," said Alonso, making himself comfortable at the foot of my bed. "The priest says that if you sleep with a man," I started saying. "That predator says a lot of things that he cannot prove, and if you ask me, there are worse things out there, and at least my lovers are consenting adults, unlike those unfortunate enough to grace the bedchambers of the Pharisee," said Alonso. "Our priest does what with what?" I asked, sitting up. "Did you see it?" "I didn't see it, but I smelled the sin in his flesh," said Alonso. "And even if I made an open accusation, I require proof, and what am I to say? That I have a good nose because I'm a werewolf? And if he claims that his victims were slaves, nobody's going to arrest him." I suppose there's some things that cannot be helped, I say, and lying back down on the bed. Alright, Latino, that's just bye-bye and God bless.